At the beginning of my career in NBC, I used to be a television producer. And to mark his 60th birthday, I produced a documentary titled Geingob, Son of the Soil. That was somewhere in 95 or 96, I couldn't be certain. Indeed, after that documentary, 2012, we bumped into each other again. Then we said that, well, that was a very good documentary. So then I said, look, we could follow it up with a written book account that could serve as a historical record. So that's how it started. That was 2012. But then again, it was a time when there was a Sopo Congress where he was busy. There was no time. Also, he didn't want that to be a role in the campaign. So we decided we were going to do it after the election. That didn't happen until 2020 when we revisited the idea. That's where the book emanates from. So it has been 4 years in the works, really. And one of the last time that we worked together before his demise was December 2023. We had agreed that we were going to be in Sokopon to just really go through the facts one more time. Obviously, that did not happen, as you know what has happened on the 4th of February.
Yes. Well, the book focuses on the political odyssey of Hage G. Geingob. What aspects of his life and his career did you find most compelling, and why?
The entire book is an interesting one. I encourage people to read it. What was astonishing was how he left for exile, because he left on a very unusual day, which was on Christmas Day, 1962. Most of us will be celebrating with our Christmas here, but he was determined to leave for exile at that early age and ending up in the U.S. some years later. And I think also it captures his role at the UN, together with others, Theo Ben-Guritab and Hidi Pomtenya, who were the three representatives of SWAPO at the UN. Again, it traces back his journey back into Africa when he became director of UNIN. Then the time when he was sent back to lead a delegation in 1989 to come and prepare for elections as director of elections. Eventually, you will be interested to see really what happened during the Constituent Assembly, where he was chairperson of the body itself, and they were tasked to put together a constitution for Namibia. So there were a lot of trade-offs in terms of what must the constitution of Namibia look like after independence. It was not easy, but there are not very many countries who can write a constitution in 80 days. We did that. And if you look again, the examples of France and America, it took them 2 years to write their constitutions, but it took us 80 days. I think that was fascinating. But also, most important is how he had to engage people off the meetings to persuade them of the correctness of reaching an agreement sooner rather than later. Again, it stresses his role when he stood for vice president of SWAPO in 1991, again 97, and further still in 2012, until the time that he got elected as SWAPO president, eventually becoming state president. So there are fascinating facts about his life, from the time that he left in 1962 to the time that he got elected as president of the republic.
Wow, that's very fascinating, Doctor. How did you conduct your research for this book? And it must have been very difficult, you both being very busy people. What sources did you have to rely on, and what challenges did you encounter during the whole process?
Interesting question. The book uses primary sources largely. One would be interviews with him. I spent a lot of time. I spent 4 years with him, obviously different times altogether. But I also spoke to people around him. I have an account from President Nyoma. I have an account from other leaders who were close to him. At the same time, I used my own experience having worked for him before when he was Prime Minister. So some of the things that are there are stories that I will be aware of. And thirdly, there are newspaper reports that I use. So every claim that is made in the book is actually referenced in the book itself. I tell you who said what, how that came about. So it's not something that one will sit and then think these are facts. But I'll quote people, I'll quote written accounts, and so forth. So it took 3 years, as you said. The president he was busy, so we could find time as his schedule permitted, and that really accounts for one of the challenges that I faced. We would prefer to release the book sooner than next week, but we have to work within the constraints of time that we had at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. And you earlier said that you would really want people to read this book, but what would you hope readers will take away from reading Whispers of Freedom?
One of the things that I hope people will appreciate is his sense of being a humanitarian, his self-understanding of the challenges that the people of Namibia faced, his drive for a transparent society, his drive for freedom and independence. He was a qualified teacher. Many in his position would have chosen not to go for exile, but stay home and earn a living as a teacher because he was qualified. He was a qualified one. But if forgo all of those for the larger good of society, because he understood that we're not going to remain oppressed. We should be ready when independence came. So he made effort to ensure that the agenda of Namibia was flown around the capitals of the world. And this he did not do alone, obviously. He worked with it. Many of his comrades, a lot of them are still alive today. President Nyoma, as I said, is given an account on this. And I think, as I said, most people who have given accounts, they are still alive today, or they are on record as having said it because we have recordings of people that we spoke to. So I think it's also his love for sport. People appreciate that. It's not something that was just being said as rhetoric. It's really he loved sport, he loved music, he loved just being out in the public. But obviously the constraint of the office of the president made things a little bit impossible for him.
Well, quite a very interesting, title, Whispers of Freedom. What is the significance of this title in relation to the book's content?
When he was at the Augustinium, together with Professor Peter Kachevevi, they became to be influenced by what was happening, the events that was unfolding elsewhere in Africa, especially the events in Ghana 1957. So they began to whisper about Namibia's own trajectory to independence, and that's how the title evolves. Because it's written somewhere in the book that the whispers of freedom began to emerge on the campus of Augustinium College, and that's where the conversations begin now. What is the role of generation of that day with regards to liberating, freeing Namibia from colonial bondage?
Mm-hmm. Now, the late Dr. Geingob has obviously made he has made very significant contributions to politics and to society, but how was his leadership and how has it impacted Namibia's development and its place in the international arena?
You recall the drive for anti-corruption stance that then Prime Minister Geingob laid. I think it was in the 90s. I recall that I was still the NBC at that time. That led to the creation, the birth of Anti-Corruption Commission as you know it today. Creation of institutions and systems that he championed in a new country. As you recall, there did not exist a government for Namibia prior to March 1990. When he became Prime Minister, he became the champion of creating a united public service that will serve the interests of all Namibians, irrespective of their race, color, gender, or any creed. And I think you remember him for having created those institutions. You will know that even at the time that he passed away on February 4th last year, the institutions that he so championed came to the rescue, because within 14 hours of his death, Namibia had a new president. We thank him for believing in institutions that he so believed that Namibia will remain agile at any given time, irrespective of who is or is not there.
Well, finally, and perhaps just in a minute, can you perhaps assess the current political landscape in Namibia and also the prospects for the future?
Namibia is in good state because of the wisdom of our leaders, having to have foresight to create institutions that will last, that will last beyond their lifespan. Most of the time, we create institutions because we mirror ourselves in those institutions. President Geingob looked beyond that to create a society that will endure the time.